Okay, so I was just watching the sunset and I was reminded of 2 days ago, my husband has kind of been struggling a little bit with the blessing of the energy centers, and he was asking me, how can you feel them? He's like, he just can't feel them. So I was trying to explain to him a little bit about like how, like when I first started, what I imagined, you know, and when I first did it, I couldn't feel, you know, he's like, feel it, and I just really couldn't feel it. So I just, you know, put my attention on the location of where they're at. And over time, I just thought, well, what can I do to feel it? And so when he goes to the different energy centers, you know, you've seen those pictures of like the people with the little balls of light, the little chakras or whatever. And so I started by just kind of imagining that. So like, let's say, for example, since you can see my throat, like, and I don't imagine the color. I imagine just like a ball, like right here. And it's like I guess you could say it's more of a ball of energy, but I kind of imagine it like a ball of light. And so I kind of imagine it like that. And, you know, and then as he kind of wants you to think more around you, I kind of think of like, you can think of like an orbit around me or something like that, some kind of a ring or like a hula hoop, kind of just like going all around me. And then it's like, I think of it more like a magnetic field, you know, and every time is a little bit different, I guess you can say. The more I do it, the more I can really feel it. But when I was first doing it or starting it, or if I'm struggling or something, I'll think of that ball, and then I'll think of like that energy kind of around me, and it's almost like this extends out to that. And sometimes if you think about that, it's like all of a sudden you can just, ooh, you like feel this, I think of like a real heavy duty magnet, like, whoa, 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 you know, it's kind of coming out. And if I feel it strong enough, you do kind of almost feel like a radiating or something. And sometimes it's almost on like a two-dimensional plane. It's almost like it's like going straight out like this. But other times I can feel it maybe just going up, but then other times I can feel it going like more around like that. So, you know, I mean, that's what I do when I try to feel them. And, you know, and then like when he's asking you to connect them, I kind of do a little bit like the breath work where, you know, I think of more like a straw, but more like energy going through it instead of like liquid going through it. And it's amazing how like I can like feel it. And sometimes it's like I can feel the connection, especially in my lower ones. It's like I can feel the connection. It's like once it hits one of those, it's like it kind of hits me and it like makes me shake. You know, I'm a big shaker. So, you know, if you're struggling with those, you know, that's kind of my suggestion, is just to kind of imagine energy. And, you know, I'm sure other people have other ways that they imagine it, but that's what I told my husband. That's kind of how I have imagined it. And once you do feel it, it's amazing. And when I first started feeling them, I started noticing which ones were stronger and which ones were weaker. So I know my second one is really weak. And, you know, my first, I can feel it. It's like going down my legs, and I can feel it almost going to the ground sometimes. It's almost like I'm wearing like one of those big hoop skirts that the ladies used to wear a long time ago, those big hoop skirts. It's like going all down. But then I get to that second, and it's like, I can barely feel it at all. And, you know, there was one time I didn't do a Dr. Joe meditation. I thought, I'm just going to try to work on that center, you know, kind of do what he asks us to do. And I just focused kind of on that one. And I kind of like was putting my hand on there, because you know how he does stuff with like healing with your hands, and you kind of feel energy there. So I thought, well, what if I just kind of like, I was kind of doing like circular, and it was weird. I could really feel like, as I did it, I was like a magnet, and I could like feel it like around it. And so that was cool. I could actually feel it, you know, and I couldn't feel just me closing my eyes and just starting to sense that I couldn't feel it. But once I kind of like focused on it more and I started doing that, it's like I could kind of feel the magnetic pull of it. And I was just kind of working on that one to maybe loosen it up or something like that, because, you know, he doesn't really focus on individual ones. And so I know that I've got a lot of something down there, and I got to loosen it up. And it'd be nice if he had some meditations that focused on some of those. But anyway, like I said, the more you practice, the more you do them, I think the more you'll start to feel them. And I think some people may feel more than others, because some people I think are just more in tune with the feelings and the sensations. So don't feel discouraged if you've got somebody like, oh man, I felt this blast of fire or something, you know, and you're like, I'm not feeling it, you know. I think what's important is you're just focusing on them, because when I did my very first or second, I don't remember if it was my first or second blessing of the energy centers, and I couldn't like feel anything. And it like, all of a sudden during that meditation, I like dropped my head and like went up like this, and I was like, I felt like I was somewhere else. So obviously I was doing something, because that was like the first time ever I felt like I like triggered, I don't know if it's going to gamma or something like that, I like triggered something. And so I knew I had to be doing something, even though I couldn't feel these energy centers. So don't doubt if you can't feel it. Just put the attention there. And I think that's what's really important. And then maybe the more you practice, the better you get at it. And I do highly recommend doing the blessing of the energy centers. I do one every other day. I've got lots of health issues, but I've noticed that those really seem to recharge me. And it just seems like if your energy centers are misaligned or not firing right or not open enough or giving off enough energy, or they're weak, that this is something that you really need to get going. And you may, I don't know if you've got like emotions or something just like in there, but you open those up, and I know I feel better after them, and I feel like I'm progressing and I'm getting closer to that healing point. I mean, I know I'm healing. It's slow, and I just want that time to be like, bam, I'm healed. But I just know that I love doing them, and I highly recommend you doing those, because, and often, and I've heard other people say just that's what they recommend doing. If you don't want to do any other of them, just do blessing of the energy center, and I think you can heal yourself or get whatever you want out of the future, whatever it is you want. So I do highly recommend those, and just keep practicing and don't give up.